While at the state capitol right now, protesters are marching for a seventh night. They are calling for justice and equality, demanding the removal of a monument many say is offensive, that of the Confederate General John Brown Gordon. It is a debate happening in communities across the country right now. What to do with monuments linked to white supremacy, oppression, and social injustice. Someone scrawled the words "tear down" on the base of the Gordon statue. Around the same time the graffiti was spotted, police cited this woman, 55-year-old Jamie Lee Loeffner, for trespassing and interference with government property. Our cameras were there when she was taken into custody. So just who was John Brown Gordon? Born in Upson County, he rose to prominence during the Civil War, eventually earning the rank of lieutenant general. He went on to serve 2 terms in the United States Senate. In between, he was elected governor of Georgia. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, Mr. Gordon was a symbol of the age of white supremacy to his constituents and rumored to be a Grand Dragon in the KKK.